Hey folks, I'm Rob, one of the guys here. I know some guys, and I know what you're thinking. It seems like forever ago that I was here, well, yeah, here, talking about how I wanted to do this kind of thing, and I want to do lots of them, lots and lots and lots and lots of them, and then I just disappeared. So what happened? Let's talk about it. Right after making that last / first video and making fun of the place that we're recording, the lighting and the green walls and me. The next day, maybe 2 days after that, all the lights, all the lights went out in this space. And it wasn't a matter of changing bulbs, and it wasn't a matter of doing anything, easy. All the ballasts had finally burnt out on the very last few bulbs that were down here. And so then I had no place to do these things. But with the help of some great friends, they came over and did most of the work because, I can hold stuff and I can follow directions, but doing electrical work isn't something that I do. They actually replaced the fluorescent bulbs with LEDs, and without having to do a whole bunch of work. We just, I didn't think it was a whole bunch of work. Like I said, they did most of it. So easy, but bypassing the ballasts and just running the electrical right to the LEDs with the neat little connections that you get with the bulbs. And I had light. Also, around that time, nicely enough, the kids for the holidays got me a lighting rig. So then I had more light than I could possibly need. And that was great. And then, shortly after that, the entire world, as my grandmother would like to say, went to hell in a handbasket. And why a handbasket? I have no idea. Why it's worse to go in a handbasket? Maybe it's more uncomfortable, like that. I don't know. But anyway, these kinds of things, they didn't seem like they were something that should be priority. There were other things going on in all of our lives that took precedence. And so I waited. And then something else happened. And then something else happened. And I don't have to really explain this to you guys because you're living through it along with the rest of us. Anybody that happens to see this way in the future, just look up 2020, assuming that history is written down for this year and not just thrown away, then you'll get the idea. But things are starting, maybe, kind of, to get back to normal. And even if they're not, as I said last time, sometimes you just have to do it. Because if you don't just get it done, then it's never going to happen. And then you wind up thinking how you would have liked to have done one of these things, and you just didn't. So anyway, as I told you last time around, give you a little idea about the guys. As you know, I am one of the guys, and we all worked, at least for some time, together at another organization. That place went through a lot of changes over the years, and I was there for most of it. Dave less so, and Jesse less so than that. But we have a good working relationship. Our skill sets are complementary to one another. And so when that company decided to close down that piece of the organization, we opted to do this thing. Well, not this thing, but this thing. And it's been going well. I have to say it hasn't been easy, not by a long shot. And certainly income is not what it used to be. But that's okay, because luckily, I have great partners in Dave and Jesse, and I have a wonderful family and a wife who didn't, kill me for taking a pay cut, essentially, by doing this thing on our own instead of trying to go out there and get what every once in a while she will jokingly refer to as a real job. I get to work from home, which means that this whole crisis business of working from home hasn't affected us very much in terms of workload. Actually, we may have gotten a little more work, at least in the beginning. It has, however, affected payment because when people aren't out and they're not shopping and they're not spending money, you know, there's no money to go around. So extending time on our invoices is something that we were, happy. I guess maybe that's not the right word, right? We weren't woohoo, but we were certainly glad to be able to do that for folks that work with us because it's the right thing to do. It's very simple. But again, as to why we did this, there was no particular agenda for doing this on our own, other than not wanting to be in a position where we would be, thrown to the wind necessarily by someone else's decision. We're going to make it. We're going to make it on our own, and if we didn't make it, also on us to some degree, right? There are plenty of businesses that start and things happen that aren't necessarily any fault of your own, and the business that you're trying to get going goes under. Whether that's personal things happen, we know about that. There are lots, I'm sure, and unfortunately lots of very small businesses that, thanks to what's going on in the world today, aren't going to make it. No matter how hard they try, if the environment isn't suitable for what you're doing, then maybe they come back later. Maybe they shift to something else. For example, and not a direct correlation, obviously, because it's quite different. But remember that company I told you that we worked for? Originally, that company did instructor-led computer training. In fact, I was one of the instructors. So I stood in front of lots of people and taught them things like, how to add a page break to Word, or how to administer Windows, or do application development in Notes, which is what we still love to do. But as time went on, that wasn't a skill that people were necessarily looking to pay top dollar for, right? Eventually, all the old folks who needed to know how to work a mouse, and I taught plenty of classes where people needed to learn how to work a mouse, didn't need to anymore. Right? Basics of computers, for instance, was going by the wayside. And kids were doing it for the time that they were 3 and 4. So when they went into the workplace, they didn't need to have some guy like me show up and go, oh, and now you move your hand with the mouse and click. Oh, don't click twice. They didn't need any of that. And many applications became ubiquitous, and people just know them. So, and people also didn't want to do things like take 3 days and go to a classroom. So we started doing things like video training, distance learning. This was well before this, so that when people were concerned about early on in this about doing training or schoolwork via the internet, I was behind it. I said, it's doable. It's not the same thing, and no, you don't get the same necessarily. You don't get the same experience. You're not sitting in a room with 15 other people where you can kind of look and talk and do that kind of thing. Not easily, anyway. But to get information across, it's possible. To learn from that is possible. It's not the greatest for 5 and 6 year olds, clearly. Keeping their attention, in a room full of other people is hard enough. Doing it when they're sitting at a computer screen and can decide to just go, do something else for a while, I'm sure is not easy. And I do not one bit envy those people who have to do this. In fact, that they are incredible folks, and you should give them all the leeway that you can. If you think it's frustrating for you sitting at home as a parent trying to deal with this, imagine what the teachers are going through. It's not easy, I'm sure. But anyway, so we started doing that. And then when people didn't really need that anymore, or there were other venues, or people were doing, self-study for computer stuff, because again, they had the basics and all they needed was specific information about this one thing. So they, they would go and find it online, possibly for free, possibly for less than it would cost them to have somebody like me sit and talk to them. And when that happened, then we started doing other things. We started doing virtual meetings and helping people run their meetings. And part of the company, a large chunk of it actually, that was around when the place closed, moved and shifted to another organization which was doing that type of thing. So things change. You adapt, you adjust, or you die. That's the way it works. For everything. In fact, much of what I will eventually talk about happens everywhere. For example, management. As much as it pains me to say this, my development skills are not as honed as they used to be because I spend and had spent a lot of my time doing other things. Managing people, managing projects, working with project managers to keep things, moving and rolling along. And the more you do that, the less you write code. The less you write code, the less sharp, let's say, you have a tendency to become. Remember that bit about our three folks here, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Rob. For those of you that don't know, Dave and Jesse, Dave is Jesse's dad. I like to joke and introduce them and say, Dave Gallagher, Jesse Gallagher, no relation. But that's not true. So our team works well because Jesse and Dave knock out code. And me too. Don't get me wrong. I knock out code too. I can still develop. The chops are still there. It just sometimes takes me a minute longer to remember. Because I'm also getting older, and to jump back in there and get things going. But make no mistake, I still got it. So they do that. They do things like write code, and they do it very well and quite efficiently. And one of the things that frankly they're not particularly interested necessarily in doing is being the person on the other side who works or tries to work, because sometimes it's real tough to get people to do what you're recommending them to do. And it often feels very much like, this. And there's nothing like, having somebody come to you and ask you to help them, and then present them with options, and have them not really care about what options you picked, but just said, we've always done it this way, and that's the way we want to keep doing it, because that's what people know. That's great. And all change, again, no matter what form it takes, all change is difficult for we human beings because we like things the way they are. We get into a routine. We like to know what we're doing. We don't necessarily like to see something new or have to deal with something new. But that new thing is often, better for us. Whether it be, changing what you eat, says the fat man. Or any number of other things that happen during your lifetime, right? We grow, we change again, or we die, and that too is a change. So there you go. But coming back to the team, our goal apart from survival, right? Because it matters, was that we wanted to be able to do things that we wanted to do. That's from I'm going to speak for Dave because he's not here, so you can't stop me. From Dave and my perspective, particularly, I think was more about getting to do the things that we want to do. Right. We're also very different in terms of where we stand in our lives, which I think also helps because we help balance that. Right. Dave. So working on our own allows us to take the jobs, oftentimes it's jobs that we need, right? Like I said, we're not making as much money as I hoped we would when we started this thing, because frankly, there was a huge organization that was relying heavily on all of the development work that Dave, Jesse, and I created to keep their stuff humming along. And I thought, naivety, I thought that we could just pick that back up, right? We would use the same servers, we would use the same software. We were the guys who wrote it, we were the guys who made it work. We could just continue that. Don't pay them, now pay us, and frankly, pay us a little less. So everybody's happy. Turns out that I hate that Howie. Turns out that there's legal people and accountants and all kinds of folks that put a kibosh on that real quick. We need you past 5 years of financials. Well, the ink hasn't even dried yet on the proposal for putting the company together and name and getting licensing, all that stuff. It's not even done yet. So we don't have 5 years of financials. Well, we wouldn't want to. Basically, after some back and forth, and then the people that we worked with directly, they were incredibly sweet and kind to us. They liked what we did for them. They were sorry that we had to go, but they didn't have the power to say yes, hire these people. Somebody else up the hill decides who that is, and one of the things that came across was, well, we don't want to put this kind of project into an organization that is an unknown, which I disagreed with. We weren't an unknown. That might just decide or not last or pull the rug out from under them. Which I also found amusing, because the reason that we were in the place we were in is because the company that they had worked with for a very long time had just decided, forget it. We're not going to do this anymore. So, you're on your own. Good luck, Godspeed. So that had just happened with a company that they had worked with for many, many years. And we were not an unknown entity. They know who we were. The local folks, right? The people that we worked with directly were very happy with what we were doing for them. But, c'est la vie. So, while we do clearly work with, anybody that comes down the pike for us, that's worthwhile, and we feel is a good fit, because we're not always a good fit, then, we're happy to do the work. But more importantly, it gives us the opportunity to do things like, have, let's call them pet projects. Things that one or all of us agree that, we're taking a hit on the cost, or we're probably putting too much time into this thing that's not making us as much money as this thing, but that's what we're there for. So we like that kind of deal. That that we decide, right? Who, what, and how much. And yes, did I just compare our organization of 3 dudes to Julia Roberts? Damn straight I did. And because we are the prettiest woman you will ever know once you get to know us. Heart of gold, we have a heart of gold. But it gives us that kind of opportunity, and that's exactly what we were looking for. So I may have rattled off a bit too much of the mouth at this point, so I should probably wrap this up. But one of the things that's very important, in case I don't get to do another one of these for 8 months, I get it. We've obliterated the 2 rules, the two main rules of a successful YouTube channel. Right? One, we don't have a particular straight out, this is what this channel is going to be about. And 2, consistency. Well, to be fair, if I do another one of these in, say, 8 months, we'll at least be consistent. So if nothing else, we'll have that going for us. But something that is really important that there are a number of things I think are really important to being a good manager. And I also realize that my management style is not the same as everyone else's. But I find this works for me. And as a tech guy who works with tech people, I think this works best. And that is, there are a few things. One is a bit of empathy. Right? You need to have that. And people say that not sympathy, no, empathy. People say that that's not something that you can learn. That's not a skill you can learn. I disagree. I don't know where I learned it. Maybe I was born with it. I doubt it. I have a very loving family, other than the ones here. But those that molded me, so to speak. My mother, my sister, my grandfather, in particular. Maybe at some point we'll get into a number of those stories. He's fantastic, fantastic man. I hope that I do him justice when I do talk about some of the things that I've learned from him. But one of them is certainly empathy. And that is that, you gotta, policies are great. Having things written down are fantastic. You need to work with people because that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people. You're not dealing with a machine. People are going to have bad days. People are going to have bad weeks. If somebody starts to have bad years, then you got to deal with that. But it's often more important from my perspective. And I have had more than one discussion about somebody breaking the rules. If somebody comes in a half hour late, as long as you let me know, why that is, I'm pretty okay with that. Mostly because I also know that the people that I work with, and the atmosphere that I like to create, I also know that when I need those people to stay 30 minutes, an hour, to work on something at night, maybe, are willing to do that. Usually, not always, because like I said, people are people. Things go on. But you have to have that. If you don't, then I think that you are most certainly a crappy leader and probably a bad manager. Those two are distinct, by the way. We'll talk about that later if you're interested. In my opinion, leaders and managers, different things. Sometimes they conflict. Right? I remember when I mentioned a minute ago that I've had conversations in the past with people when someone thought that something was going wrong or somebody wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing or was a problem. The leader in me says, well, we address the problem, right? That's what you do. You address the problem, you motivate as best you can, you find out what the issue is, you help them if you can, and then you move, hopefully everybody moves forward, bigger, better, greater than they were before. That's the goal. As a manager, however, you're paying somebody to do something the way you tell them to do it. And when they don't, that too can be a problem and needs to be, you got to put the kibosh on it. And a manager that is strictly a manager, I'm looking at numbers, I'm looking at bottom lines, I barely know your name, check mark, you can go. Because you are 0.1% below the average of everybody else. So you get out of here and we'll try to find somebody else, maybe, to fill your spot. Leader, you're 0.1% below. Let's talk about why that is. Not everybody's the same, folks. They're just not, says the man with 4 children, all of whom have different personalities and different strengths and weaknesses and different motivation goals, right? You can't motivate them all the same way. It just doesn't work. If it did, that would be fantastic. But we're human beings. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're still checking on Jesse. Dave promises me that he knows that Jesse's real. I'm not entirely sure. We can get into some of the reasons why later. But the other thing that is important, and I think is maybe even more important than empathy, although maybe they come together, is you got to be aware that you, Mr. Person in charge, at any level, whoever that is, you don't know everything. And you have to be open to new ideas. You have to be open to people that have different points of view than you do. You don't have to necessarily agree with them. And if you don't agree with them, you don't have to fire them. You don't have to stop being their friend. Oh, I feel a rant coming on. Oh, it's coming. I'll probably cut it out. But you don't have to necessarily say that you're going to take every idea and concept and implement it. That's not possible because people, remember, are different. They have different backgrounds, they have different experiences, and they bring that to the table. And frankly, that is a good thing. That is how change happens. That is how things move forward. If you are running a business and you are of one singular focus and mind, and that is all you are ever going to do and all you are ever going to see, you may make some really good stuff, but I don't think that the longevity will be there. Again, my opinion. I'm allowed. Oh, look, opinions. Imagine that, more than one. But you need to really take that into consideration. I would joke. I don't joke about it anymore because now we're partners. So I'm not the guy in charge. We all are. And frankly, again, for another time maybe, that was difficult for me. I think that in the beginning, when we started out, I took a really big step back for ideas and thoughts and what I thought we should be doing. Part of that is because I didn't want the other guys, to think that I was still in that mindset of Rob's in charge. And so, it would have bothered me if I was in their position. Oh, look, empathy. It would have bothered me if I was in their position, and then the guy who was in charge thought he still was, and was just making decisions. So back to what I used to joke about in the office when we had one. Who needs them, right? You don't need offices anymore. I've been saying this for years and years and years. I had people working from home long time ago because it just made sense. Sometimes people need to be at home and they can still work while they're there. If you can't trust your people to work from home, then you can't trust your people, period. If you think they're slacking off at home, going to slack off at home, I guarantee you those same people are slacking off at the office. No doubt in my mind. But anyway, I always ran, or at least this is what I told my people, I always ran a benevolent dictatorship. Right? In the end, the decision was mine. And because of that, I also made sure that when something went wrong, and it was because I made a judgment call, I took the heat for it. That's the way it works. But as a good leader, I think, it's hard to tell if you're really a good leader or a good manager, right? You can kind of judge it by how your people are reacting and the work that they do. But frankly, as one person mentioned to me a long time ago, these people aren't your friends. I don't believe that. Everybody I worked with, I consider a friend. But these people aren't your friends. Right? They're your employees. Of course they're going to tell you that they like what you're doing. Of course they're going to tell you they like you. Because, you're the boss. That's the way it works. That's not the way I like it to work. I like people to give me their opinions. I like people to give me ideas. I like people to tell me, call me out on my crap. If something I'm doing sounds like it's nonsense, come to me and let me know. We'll talk about it. There are decisions that are made sometimes that can't be explained. Like, well, this is what we got to do. Why? Well, because the big boss said we got to do it. And so therefore we got to do it. It's your job. Get it done. But I don't like that very much. And sometimes you got to do it. I don't like it. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. Hopefully next time around we can talk more about some management stuff. Maybe we'll get into a few other things. Like I said, we're breaking the rules here, the YouTube rules of pick a topic and stick with it, and that's probably for the best. I mean, that's what the most successful channels do, right? They have one thing, and when you want that thing, that's where you go. I don't know what our thing is yet, but right, you got to do it. You got to keep banging on, folks. In order to come up with something, you can't always wait. So here we go again. Hopefully you've had a good time today. And if you have, do us a favor. We really appreciate it. Help us feed the YouTube algorithm monster. Give us a like or a dislike even. Some kind of reaction would be nice so we know where we're hitting with these things. Comments are great. As I said, if you have any particular topics that you'd like to talk about, or if you've worked with us in the past and want to know about a particular story, by all means, drop it in the comment section. I'm going to ask very nicely that if you do have a question, or if you do want to hear a story, perhaps you already know the story, maybe we can keep it a little bit anonymous down there if you're going to be putting comments in. Tell us about X, Y, and Z. Let's not use people's names, please, or companies, or anything really that would get us in a lot of trouble. But by all means, or if you want to use them specifically, send it directly to me or at any one of the guys, really, and we'll see what we can do. Until then, folks, as I said, whatever it is that you're trying to do, keep banging on. It's the only way to get it done. Bye for now.